So once again, welcome to the session. Shreyas, can we start the session now?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Hello and welcome everyone. Hi. I hope you're all doing good. So today, we'll take a look at one of the core services that we are going to cover in this course, which is Azure Data Factory, right? So we'll see the live working of how Data Factory works. We'll try to understand some of the components of the Data Factory. We'll try to understand why people are so much wanting to work with data factory and pipelines, and why pipelines are being preferred today. So all these things we'll try to understand today, and we'll also try to create a simple data factory pipeline, right? And you'll really enjoy this, and you'll find it really easy as well, right, once you understand the concepts. So let me share my screen. Now, so when you start, working uh, with Azure Data Factory, you're working with something called as Azure Data Pipelines, right? So we have ADF, right? That stands for Azure Data Factory, right? Now, Azure Data Factory is a service within Azure, right? It's a fully managed service. We call it a fully managed service. Now, when you're working with Azure, you'll always come across some resources which they term as a fully managed resource. All right. Now, what does this fully managed means? Right? It means that majority of the workload will be managed by Microsoft itself. All right. Fully managed means it is managed by Microsoft. Now, what all is managed by Microsoft here? Microsoft will manage all the compute, all the data transfer, right? You will just have to define your logic. How that logic gets, implemented and performed, where does the processing power comes from? That is not your headache. All right. Your headache is only to define the logic, all right, as to what you want to do. Now, when you talk about, right, Azure Data Factory, pipelines, right? And in this universe of data, right, organizations are constantly, facing a fundamental challenge. And that challenge is, you know, how to collect, process, and transform the raw data. That is the whole reason as to why we are, going to study data engineering, right? So you want to transform this raw data, right, which is coming from various sources, right? And you want to convert it into a meaningful output, right? Or actionable insights you want to draw from this data. Now, raw data in its initial state is like an unrefined ore, right? It is valuable, but it is not yet usable, right? It has to be moved, it has to be cleaned. You need to give a proper shape to this data. You need to enrich this data before you can convert it into some business intelligence, through reports, through dashboards, however you want to do it, right? This process of collecting data, transforming it, and then making uh, analytics ready data available, right? It is called as the ETL process, right? You're all aware of it already. Now, historically, this has been one of the most complex domains, right? Because you have a custom coded application, you have to write a lot of scripts here, and data engineers, would spend countless hours writing these scripts, debugging them, right, and maintaining uh, a lot of code along with the hardware, right? Initially, you have to manage the code along with the hardware, right, on which this code will process the data. But you know, uh, this is something that data factory changes, All right, it is a powerful approach, but it is difficult to scale. It is hard to manage the hardware, right, by the engineering team, and that is where data factory enters, right? So the moment we have ADF, and I call it as a fully managed resource, right, it means most of its functionalities will be managed by Microsoft. So it's a cloud-based data integration service. All right, it is not a database, it is not a storage service. Never get confused. ADF does not store data. All right. Azure Data Factory does not store data in any form, whether in the table format or a file format. In any format, ADF does not work as a data storage service. All right. It's just a sophisticated automated tool. It is the orchestrator, or like you can say, the conductor of your data movement, right? And it is designed to automate the movement and transformation of your data, which is present on the cloud, or it could be present in your on-premises environment also. All right, it allows you to create, schedule, and manage data driven pipelines. All right, and these pipelines that you create basically collect the data from the source, they move it, they transform it. T1 plus T2 is, T1 is a single transformation, T2 is another transformation, and then it puts the data to the destination. Now, in Azure, we do not use the term destination a lot. The term that we use is called as a sink. All right, so you have a source and you have a sink, which is your destination. All right, and in between, you are transforming the data. When you put the data, pick the data from the source, you do the transformation and you put it in the destination, which is your sink. Right now, there are several components of data factory that I want to discuss with you, right? But let's talk about pipelines first, right? While the benefits of a managed services are clear, right? That ADF is a managed service, so there's a lot less management and maintenance overhead that we have to worry about, right? But there's a more fundamental question here, right? Why do we need a concept of a pipeline, right? Why is this pipeline required at all, right? Why not just write code, correct? This is a valid question that you may ask. Why to create pipelines? Why not? Why can't we just write the code for everything, right? After all, code is infinitely flexible and powerful. You can do whatever you want with the code, right? The answer to this question lies in understanding the limitations of a purely code-centric approach. All right, in the context of data orchestration, uh, you know, and the old way, right? The old way of doing it was to write the code itself, right? Imagine that you are, tasked with a very simple data integration task, right? Every night, let's say every night at 10 p.m., you must copy, the new sales data, right? So the store would open up in the morning and the store would close at around, let's say, 9:30 in the evening. And at 10 p.m. in the night, you have to copy all the sales transactions from that particular day to, let's say, an FTP server, all right, to some other location, right? You need to look up product details from a SQL database, and then you, let's say, want to load and the combined data into a central data warehouse, right? So what would happen in a traditional way, right? In the code centric world, you might write a Python script or you might write a C# script to accomplish this task, right? And the script would need to, contain a lot of things. It need to contain the logic and logics, right? Not just a single logic. It should contain a lot of logics. The logic to connect to the FTP server, right, where you want to put your data. The logic to list all the files and determine, which ones are the new files, the files from today, right? Implement a loop to process each and every file, right? If all the files, let's say there were 20 files that were created today, and there are 100 files from the past, then I need to understand which files were created today, and there should be a looping mechanism where I can go from one file to the other and process each one of them, right? Then for each file, I need to write the logic, correct? To open the file, to parse the data, right? And then to establish a separate connection to the SQL database also, right? Where I want to look up for the data, right? So for each row in the file, you have to execute a query against the database, right? To fetch the product details, combine the data, right? Put the data together, establish a third connection to a data warehouse, right? And then write the combined data to the target table. So there's so many logic that you have to write with the code. And when the length of the code increases, the complexity also increases. All right. What if you need to process these files in parallel to speed the things up, right? You would have to rewrite your entire code, right? For multi-threading, right? What if you need to add a new step, like sending an email notification on a failure? You'd have to modify the code, right? So how do you monitor this, right? How do you monitor this entire process? You'd like to, you'd be likely, checking the log files manually, right? How do you visualize this entire workflow? You can't, right? Because uh, you're actually running a script. So this approach of writing the codes, it suffers from several critical flaws. First of all, very high maintenance. You need a team of engineers who are constantly, working on the code. Code is a liability, right? It must be maintained, it must be patched, it must be updated, right? As the libraries and APIs change. And then there is lack of orchestration here also. The script is a monolithic block. It's difficult to manage dependencies, between multiple steps, right? Then there's a high skill barrier also. Only a programmer can understand and build these, solutions, right? Or modify this workflow, right? Business analysts and data stewards who often have, the best understanding of the data are left out in the process. They may not know how to write the code, correct? So that is a problem. In the new world where we are using these pipelines now, right? Using Azure Data Factory or using Synapse, we can create these pipelines. They change the dynamic itself, right? It is going to abstract away the low level boilerplate code, and allow you to focus on what uh, rather than the how, right? So pipelines are nothing but declarative. It's a low code, no code solution. You declare the steps you want to perform and the dependencies between them, all right? And you let the data factory service handle the underlying execution. Because when I'm creating a pipeline, I select the source, I configure the source, I select the destination, I configure the destination, I configure the initial the intermediate activities that needs to be performed on the data. I will define everything through UI. But do you think the UI will actually do the processing? Do you guys think the UI itself is capable to process everything? The answer is no. Behind this UI, what will work? The code itself work, right? Whatever UI elements I'm putting there, whatever configurations I'm doing it there, ADF is going to convert those UI elements into code, and that is going to happen in the backend, right? So if let's say 3 years from the creation of this pipeline, there is changes in the library, there is changes in the how the code works, some of the methods have been removed, some of the functionalities have been removed. Now in a situation where you have written the code yourself, you have to hire engineers who are going to work on that code and modernize it, correct? Yes or no? If let's say we went from a particular version of the language to another version of the language, and there are changes between the two versions, then I need somebody to manually sit and figure out what those changes are and how they are affecting my pipelines, or my code, not pipelines. Yes. But here what happens is the UI elements that you select are converted to the code in the backend by ADF itself, by Microsoft will take care of this. So therefore, even if the coding language changes, there is an update to the language, it does not matter. All right. Microsoft will make sure that these UI elements are converted to the code easily. Does this make sense? Yes or no? Yes? All right. Now to understand components of a pipeline, and this is very important, and please pay attention here. So components of an ADF pipeline. Let's try to understand them. Right. So this is my ADF pipeline. So what all components are there? Now, let's assume this box is my pipeline. Right. There is going to be a source. Right. And there is going to be a destination. Do you understand this? Yes or no? If I've defined the pipeline
Yes,
in
yes, yes.
ADF, it needs to connect to a source and it needs to connect to a destination also, right? So how is this connection made? My pipeline needs to connect to these sources and authenticate, correct? Why would the source or the destination allow a pipeline to connect to them until unless I have given it, basically allowed them to connect to it, correct? So therefore that authentication needs to be done. So that happens through something called as a linked service. All right. In Azure, we create something called as a linked service, which allows me to connect to either source or destination. If this is a storage account on Azure, and let's say this is a database on Azure, I have link service one that connects me to the storage account. I have link service two that connects me to the database. All right. So for each data store, I have a specific linked service because each data store requires its own authentication mechanism. Correct? The way you connect to a storage account is not equal to the way you connect to a database, right? The database will mostly have a username and password. The server will have a username and password. Correct? So when connecting to a
Oh,
database, I need to authenticate by providing the username and password. When connecting to a storage account, I need to provide the access keys. So in Azure, we have something called as an access key, which we'll cover in the class. Right now, I have to show it to you. So therefore, I'm just telling you that there is a string, right, which is called as an access key. And you're going to use this access key to authenticate onto the storage account. Clear? So linked service is nothing but a tool that allows you to connect to different data stores. All right. If you want to connect to a data store, you use a link service. Now, understanding how link service work is also very important, right? Let's say this is the perimeter of your house. All right. So this is like the boundary wall. All right. And inside the boundary wall, you have the house constructed, right? Which will have multiple rooms, right? Let's say there are 4 rooms here, right? And this is your main gate. Are you all able to understand this diagram? This is your house. This is, let's say, the entire plot, and this is the constructed area where you have 4 rooms. Clear? Link service does not take you to a room. Never. Link service only takes you to the main door of the data store. Is that clear? For example, if I want to connect to a SQL database, link service is only going to take me to that database. Now, within that database, which table, right, I want to work with, that I am not going to define through a link service. For example, in Azure, when you define a storage account, all right, and I'm sorry we have to skip this part because it would have made more sense if you would have covered it first and then went to the definition of link service. But let's just assume as of now. In Azure, when you create a storage account, let's say this is the storage account, you do not put your data directly here. Inside storage account, you create something called as a container. and within the container is where your file goes. All right. So a link service does not take me to the file directly. It will only make me enter this storage account. It does not take me inside a container. It does not take me to a file. Similarly, if it's a database, right? So within the database, it does not take me to a table, to a row, right? No, it just takes me within that database. Does this make sense? Yes or no? So only the main gate entry it will help you do. Clear? Yes or no?
Oh, yes. Yes, it's clear, clear.
Right? Now, once you entered the main gate, you need to know which room to go to. For example, in database, which table to select, right? In storage account, which container should I go to? Because there can be n number of containers here. So which container is my file in? So link service takes me to the main gate, but inside the main gate, I want to go to a, let's say, a particular container, then select the file within the container, and then define the file, right? The file will have some properties. If it's a CSV, you have to give properties like, that it's a delimited text file, comma is a delimiter here, right? All those things. The definition of a file you need to give. So linked service takes me to the main gate. Apart from link service, defining the container, the file, and defining the file, right? This is for a storage account. If I'm in a database, then linked service will take me to the main gate, then to the table, right, that I want to work with, right? This together, and here link service along with the container file and the definition of the file is called as a data set. Does it make sense? A link service is like your access to the main gate. When you access the main gate, you will have a container where your file is. Inside the container, you will select the file, and then you will define the file. What type of file is it? Whether it's a CSV file or a Parquet file or a JSON file. So that definition of the file, all of this together, put together is called as a data set. Clear? When I create it in front of you, it will make more sense. Any doubts here? Yes or no?
Oh,
All right.
yes.
In
Well,
targets, I have doubt.
Go ahead.
mhm.
Suresh, in target side data set means like ADLS, correct?
Data set is basically defined for both source and destination. You have a source data set also, where I define that okay, I will use this link service to go to my storage, and then within the storage, this is the container where my file is, which file is that, and what is the type of the file. Once I define everything together, it becomes a data set. All right. Link service is only as good as an ID card that will let you enter the data store. But within the data store, where is my data? What is the data? What type is the data? That definition put together becomes the data set. Clear? Link service is only like an ID card. Now,
Okay, Suresh.
hmm? Now, after that, if you see, we have something called as activities. All right. What are activities? These are nothing but individual tasks that I want to perform with the data. All right. If I just want to copy data, I will use something called as a copy data activity. If I want to do something else with the data, let's say I want to do a lookup in a table, I will use the lookup activity. Let's say I want to filter out certain rows, right, or certain columns, I will use the filter activity. So like this, you have multiple activities. Activities are nothing but individual transformations that you want to define with your data. Clear? If this is clear, you are ready to create your first pipeline. All right, let me show it to you. Now, I'll just give you a brief understanding of the storage account. So in Azure, we store our data in something called as an ADLS. This stands for Azure Data Lake Storage all right, ADLS. In ADLS or in blob storage also, we'll understand the difference in the class, what they are, and we are going to, go into the depth of how they work. Basically, you create the storage account, but you do not upload your data directly to the storage account. Inside the storage account, you create something called as container, and within the container, you upload your file. So what we are going to do is, let me open the Azure portal and show it to you. And don't get overwhelmed. We'll discuss everything. If I go to storage account, right? So I'm here in the Azure portal. I am going to my storage account and I'm going to use this NIC data lake that I have created. All right. So I'll open NIC data lake. So forget this as of now, right? If I want to upload a file, if I click on upload, you see it asks me to select an existing container. Until and unless I create a container, I cannot upload anything in this data lake, right? So I already have two containers, data and destination. If you want to see them, you can come to this left-hand side on the data store. And here I have containers. So what I have done is in this particular storage account, in this particular data lake, I have created two containers. This log container is a internal container where Azure will keep its log data. These two I have created, data and destination. Data contains a file called countries.csv. So I have a CSV file present here, right? Now, destination container contains something which I'll get rid of. Let this be an empty container. All right. So my destination container is now empty. All right. And if I come to the storage account here, in security and networking, you will find something called as the access key. This access key is used to authenticate onto my, storage account. So access key authenticates your application's request to connect to this storage account. And if I'm using Azure Data Factory and I want to connect to my storage account, I need to authenticate using access key. Storage account clear? Let's go to the Data Factory resource itself. So I'll go to Data Factories. We already have a Data Factory, but I'll create a new one for you because Data Factory creation is very easy. All right. Yesterday, I think we tried to create a virtual machine, but that is a long process. Data Factory, on the other hand, is very simple process. So I think we use the demo resource group, right? So I'll select the demo resource group. I need to select the subscription. I need to select the resource group, and then I need to give it a name. So I'll call it demo data factory, right? So we are creating a demo data factory, and this resource will also have a region. All right. You will always create these resources in a region. All right. You're not going to create it, without a region because they are, tied to a specific region. What this means is when Azure wants to process data using this data factory, it will create the compute resources in this region because my factory in this is in this region. So I'll select East US only. The name is already taken. The name has to be unique. All right. The name has to be unique because if the name is not unique, then I will not be able to connect to it. All right. Basically, what happens is if multiple factories have the same name, right, then I don't have a unique endpoint to connect to them. All right. Because the endpoint to connect to them contains the name of the factory itself. All right. So if I want to make the URL of this factory unique, I need to make the name unique. If name is unique, the URL will be unique. All right. The region is there. The version is v2. Currently, we only have v2. And that is all I want. I'll not go to the Git configuration, networking, and everything. Networking, you can see, right? There is a public endpoint for this data factory. That means you and I can connect to this data factory. Let's review and create this. It will hardly take around 1 minute for the creation of data factory because initially there is no, compute required. So I'll click on create. Now, I told you one thing, that data factory is a fully managed service. Correct? If it's a fully managed service, who should take care of the compute? If I want to pick data from point A and put that data to point B, do I require compute power here? What do you guys think? Is compute power required to move data from point A to point B?
Not required.
It is required, right? If I want to take data from a single place and put that to a second place, I need some processing power, right? So that I can process that movement. I can facilitate that movement, right? The data will not just pick itself and go to the destination, right? If I want to do some transformation on the data along the way, I require compute. So who gives this compute in the fully managed environment? Who do you think is responsible? Azure, right? Because it is fully managed. So Azure will give me the compute, correct? Make sense? Any doubts?
No.
Others? Are you clear? Pradeep, Pallavi,
Yes.
Shiva,
Yes, sir.
Gauri
Yes.
Shankar. This makes sense, right?
Yeah.
That if I'm moving data and transforming it, I'll require compute. And since it's a fully managed resource, the compute will be managed by Azure. I don't have to worry about the compute. All right. So there is a specific compute here that Azure will use, and there is a name for that compute. It is called as auto resolve integration runtime. So there is a name given to it called auto resolve integration runtime. This is nothing but the compute that Azure uses. All right. We have a separate name for this also. We generally tend to call it Azure integration runtime. So Azure IR. So this is the default compute that you get when you create a data factory resource, and this compute is responsible to process your data. Clear? So let's come here. My data factory resource is deployed. I can open the NIC demo data factory, right? And if I want to work with data factory, I have this, studio. So it is called as my data factory studio. All right. Now within this data factory studio, I can go ahead and create my pipeline. Let's say what I want my pipeline to do is, let's pick up the data, and very simple pipeline we'll create. All right. Because we have a restriction on time. We have to, in 1 hour, we have to understand what Azure Data Factory is and how it works and what are the components. So we'll create a very simple pipeline. What this pipeline will do is, it will just show data movement. All right. I'm going to move the data. I'm going to pick the data from this data container, this countries.csv file. I'll pick it from this data container and I'll put it to the destination container here. Destination container is currently empty. I'll put this data over here. So to do that, on the left hand side, you have a home section that brings you to this main page. You have an author section where you create your pipelines. We'll explain what all these terms are, but as of now, not your worry. You just need to create pipelines. There is a monitor section where you can monitor your pipelines and the runs. There is a manage section where you can manage a lot of things. If you see here, there is something called as a linked service, right? So when I create a pipeline, I need to create a link service also to my data store, wherever the data is, whether it's in a storage account, whether it's in a database, whether it's in a data warehouse, whether it's in the on-premises environment. I need to create a link service for that. And link services are reusable. If I create a link service to connect to a specific storage account, and later on I want to, in another pipeline, I want to, connect again to that same storage account, I can reuse the link service. Link services are reusable. You can reuse multiple times. Then you'll see integration runtime. This is auto resolve integration runtime, if you see. So this is currently running. This is of the type Azure, and I do not see any delete button here. There is no option to delete it. I cannot get rid of this integration runtime. This is managed by Azure. This belongs to Azure, right? There's nothing I can do about this integration runtime, right? I cannot get rid of it also, right? So these are the main sections here: monitor section, manage section. In the manage section, I can worry about my triggers also. I can, connect my code to, basically, you don't have a code here, but we'll see how what Git integration is or Git configuration is, right? We can use Microsoft Purview for data governance, but this is all something that we'll see in the course. As of now, I'm just worried about the link service and the integration runtime. So let's author a pipeline. So I'll come here, I'll click on this plus icon, and I'll create a pipeline. All right. And I have the UI ready here. Let's give my pipeline a name on this right hand side. So I'll say copy data pipeline. Right. So my pipeline will have a name. If you see here, it has a name called copy data pipeline. All right. Now, what I want to do is, these are all the activities. If I want to run a Databricks notebooks within the pipeline, if I want to run Azure function, right, there are general activities also to delete something, get the metadata, do a lookup, run a stored procedure, run a script, right? Webhooks, using webhooks. So different activities are there. For data lake also, there is something that you can use. For machine learning, right? You have machine learning execution. You can use Synapse, right? You can run a notebook, you can run a Spark job. So we'll see all of this in the class. But as of now, today, our only worry is to copy the data. So I'm going to use this copy data activity. All right. Now, copy data activity is going to be used to copy my data from the data container to the destination container. Now, I'll call this my CSV copy activity, and that is all. I don't need to define anything else. I can give a description here. I can set a timeout for this pipeline, how many times I want to retry if this pipeline fails, what should be the interval of retries if the pipeline fails. Nothing for us to worry about here. The most important thing for us to worry about here is the source and the sink. These are the only two things. If I go to the source, it asks me to create a source data set. All right. It asks me to create a source data set. As of now, I do not have any data set. So I'll click on this new button. And this is where I have to select where my source is. If you see, this data factory allows you to connect to so many data sources. All right. Snowflake, SharePoint, Shopify, ServiceNow, Salesforce, SAP tables, REST APIs, right? PostgreSQL, getting data from Oracle databases, MySQL, ODBC, using MongoDB, right? Microsoft Access, MariaDB, M365, right? It's present in HDFS, a lot of different FTP servers, file systems, right? Dynamics 365, Cassandra databases, Azure table storage, Azure SQL database, Azure Synapse Analytics, various sources for me to connect to. But where is my data present? My data is present in a data lake storage, right? My NIC data lake is a data lake storage. So I'll select Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 over here. This is where my file is. So I'll select this. I'll click on continue. Now, what is the format of the file? I'm creating the data set, right? So I need to select where it is, what is the format, and all those things will come under the data set. So I'll say it is a delimited text file in the CSV format. Click on continue. So I'll call this data set as my source data set. All right. I'll call this source data set. And now, in order to connect to this source and get this data, I need a link service, something that we discussed, right? Without link service, I cannot connect to it, right? So does a link service already exist to the storage account? No, it does not. So I'll have to create a new link service. And you see, this looks overwhelming, but this is very easy. Let me call it data lake linked service. All right, so this is my data lake link service. I can give it a definition. Now, when it is moving the data, when it is trying to connect, I'm going to use this compute. So I only have one compute. I can add another, but this is something which we'll discuss later on. So I'll be using this auto resolve integration runtime. This will be my compute when I'm transferring the data or connecting to that data store. How do I want to authenticate onto this storage account? And remember, the link services will not always ask the same details. Currently, I'm creating it for an Azure Data Lake Storage N2. That is why data lake specific configurations are being asked here. Clear? So how am I going to connect to it? Using the account key, something that I already showed you. The access key itself is the account key. All right. Since this data lake is present in my own subscription, my Azure Data Factory is also present in my own subscription. My subscription has an idea of what the account key over here is. So if I select my subscription, I will get the name of all storage accounts present within my subscription. So the one that I have to connect to is NIC Data Lake. The moment I do that, it says loading key here. All right. So the key has been loaded now because it is present in my own, subscription. If this data lake is not present in my subscription, I will say enter manually. And then I have to give the URL of a storage account. So storage accounts will always have a URL. And here I have to paste the access key. Give the URL, paste the access key. That is it. But since it is in my subscription, I'll select it like this. Nothing else required. Let's test this connection. Let's see what happens. Why is it taking so much of time? So connection is successful. All right. Apart from this, I will also show you in the class something called as identity and access management. Right. So we don't have time today to cover this, but you can add a role assignment. You can, assign roles and allow people to access this storage account using the role. So there is a role called as a blob data contributor. Right. You can say next. And do I want to assign it to? I want to assign this contributor role to my data factory, right? So that is a managed identity. We'll discuss all of this, whatever you're seeing right now, right? It may look something which you do not know, but that is absolutely fine, all right? Because we have not discussed this. So I'll say, which managed identity do I want to give access to? So I want to give access to a data factory. Which data factory do I want to give access to? I want to give access to this NIC demo data factory resource. I'll select here, review assign, right? And then I can do a role assignment here itself, and my data factory will have access to the storage account now. I will create this link service. Once I create the link service, it asks me where the file is. Now you remember we are creating the data set. I just clicked on this new button over the source data set. So my task is to create the data set itself, right? I'm creating that source data set. I have a link service present here. And I told you, right, apart from link service, it will ask you where the data is. So the file is in the data container and it's countries.csv. And we have already selected before that it's a CSV file. It's a delimited text file. So the configurations also have set. So my configuration along with the path of the file along with the link service is together my data set. And now I'll say, okay. And that is it. My source setup is done. I can preview the data over here by clicking on preview data, and I'll be able to see the data. I'll be able to see the countries.csv file in action. All right. So I'll close this. Now what do I need is, and don't worry, all these things that you see on your screen, this will be discussed in the class. For now, today, we just want to see how to simply move the data from place A to place B. If I go to sync now, I need to create a sync data set also, right? Because in the sync also, I need to define where the data is going to go. After I've defined where the data goes, I need to define what is the type of the data. I need to define where this data will go, right? So that I'll have to create a new data set, right? Again, this data is to be kept in a data lake because my destination is also the data lake itself, right? Yes or no? The source was a data lake. The destination is also the data lake. So I'll select Azure Data Lake Storage N2. Right? I'll click on continue. Now in destination, if I select Parquet here, right, it will convert it into Parquet format. But for now, let's select delimited also, right? Those are all different use cases that we'll see in the class. So I want to copy a CSV file from place A to place B. So I'll click on continue. I'll call this destination data set, right? Simple. Now, a very simple question for all of you present here today. Can I use the same link service given that my source and destination are in the same storage account?
Yes.
Others, can I use the same link service? Yes. Why? Because the link service brings me to this data lake. It brings me to this data lake, and this is where I want to come. My source was also in the same data lake. My destination is also in the same data lake. So I want to come here only, right? Since I want to come here only, what I can do is I can reuse that link service, the data lake link service. It takes me to the main gate of that storage account. All right. So that is there. Where do I want to paste this file? I want to paste the file in the destination data set, destination container. Click OK. Now this is done, right? I have selected the link service. I've selected the path where this copy data activity should copy my files, and I'll click on OK. And this is it. All right. If you want to select a copy behavior, there are multiple things. You can either flatten the hierarchy. So if there is a, directory structure present in the source, all the files would be, kept in a flat namespace in the destination. If there are multiple files, they will be merged together into a single file if I select merge files, right? If I want to preserve the hierarchy, whatever directory structure is present in the source, I want to maintain that structure, right? Hierarchy, then I can say preserve hierarchy. So anything you can select. And that is it, nothing else. All right. There's a lot of other configurations also, but that we understand, in the class, what those things are, where they work, how do they work, right? Now to run this pipeline, I need to first publish it. Without publishing, I cannot run a pipeline. Publishing saves the pipeline. So I'll click on publish. So what is getting published? A pipeline is getting published, and two data sets that I have created is getting published. Only these three things. I have a pipeline. I have defined the source data set in the pipeline. I have defined the sync data set in the pipeline, right? So source data set, destination data set, and the pipeline itself. These are the three artifacts we call it. All right, we call it as artifacts that I want to publish. Now publishing will start. It will take around 10 to 15 seconds. So publishing is complete. My pipeline is ready to be, executed and triggered. Now to trigger this pipeline, I have multiple options. I can create a trigger currently right now by clicking on trigger now, or I can define a different type of trigger, right? So there are multiple types of triggers. The most basic one that you will understand is a schedule trigger, where I'll say that starting this date and this time, the time zone is this particular. Every 15 minutes, this pipeline should run, or I can say every 15 days, this pipeline should run, or every 1 day, this pipeline should run at a given time. All right. But I don't want to use this. I want to create a scheduled pipeline. I want to trigger the pipeline right now itself. So I'll click on add trigger and I'll say trigger now itself. All right. And I'll click on OK. And the pipeline is now triggered. It says successfully running copy data pipeline. If you want to see and monitor this run, there is a button to view the pipeline run here itself, or on the left hand side, you can go to the monitor section, and here your pipeline run will now be visible. The copy data pipeline has been executed. I can open this and I will see the current activity status. So you see a green tick mark now here, right? And the activity status also says it is succeeded. What is the output? One file was read, one file is written. This is I think in KBs, this much amount of data was read and this much amount of data is written. All right. And it took around 13 seconds to do it. All right. Pipeline is successful. Now, how to validate if this is successful or not? I will go to my data lake. I will go to my containers. and my destination container was empty. Now it should have a file. If I open my destination container, I see countries.csv pasted here at, some 1 minute ago when the pipeline was successfully run. So my data is present here now, countries.csv. The pipeline read one file, has written one file. If I want to visualize it, I can see that from Data Lake Storage Gen 2, I was able to copy to Data Lake Storage Gen 2 using Azure integration runtime, which is present in the East US. So this is the Azure Auto Resolve integration runtime, which is present in the East US. 17.065 KB of data was read, 17.065 KB of data was written. All right, one file read, one file written. If there is a drop here, you can see. If there is an error here, you will be able to see the error in the monitoring section itself, right? And you get the details also of this pipeline run. So was it simple or not? Creating a very simple pipeline and moving it from moving data from one place to the other. Was it simple? What do you guys think?
Yeah, it's simple. Very simple.
It's very simple, right? See, that is what I'm telling you. And I did not have to write a single line of the code, right? I did not have to worry about the compute. Azure took care of the compute. Azure took care of the code. All I had to do was use these UI elements, create my link service. If I go to link service, I'll be able to see my link service. And there is, a section called related. Now, related says to. What does this related section here means? It means where is this link service used? So this link service is used in two places. Can you tell me which two places I've used it at?
Source and destination.
Source and
In my
target.
Yes, absolutely correct. Defining my source, I use the link service, and defining my destination also, I use the link service. So if I click on this two, I will see that the link service has been used in the source dataset and the destination dataset. If I want to see the source dataset, I can open it like this. Now this is my source dataset, right? So I told you dataset is nothing but link service, which is my data lake link service, along with the file path, along with the configurations. So these are all configuration. Any compression used in the file, what is the column delimiter, what is the row delimiter, what encoding to use, what is the code character, what is the escape character, all these different informations together. So linked service along with the location of the file and the file itself, along with the configuration of the file, is nothing but my data set. Clear? Make sense? Yes or no?
Yes, sir. Yes, yes.
All right. So with that, we'll stop here. If you have any questions, please go ahead.
So, Chef, when we can use that scenario in actual company, then when
You will
when
have
we
a
can
lot of
use that.
scenarios where you have to move the data, right? I just showed you from a data lake to data lake, but what if you want to copy the data from CSV files and then put them into the data warehouse, right? In a data warehouse, you will have a table. So you want to pick the data from here, put the data into a table. So all of that could be done with the help of a pipeline. All right. I don't have to write a code to go through the data in a CSV file and then put that data into the tables. I don't have to do that. I can automate the process from here itself, right? Let's say on a weekly basis, I am adding files to my storage account, and every day, or let's say every day I'm adding files, and every day I want that delta files. When I say delta files, whatever new files have been added, I want my data factory to pick up only those new files, extract the data from the new files and put it into the storage account, or let's say put it into a database. Next day, again, the same process to be repeated at the same time. But then whatever files were processed in the past should not be touched. Only the new files should be touched. So all of that logic could be implemented with Data Factory. All right.
It means manual intervention is no needed, right?
No, not required. It will automatically run. And also, if the pipelines fail, there is a mechanism for you to send notifications also. You can set alerts. If any failure is there in the pipeline, it will send emails. It can send you mobile notifications also, text messages also. You can set up alerts. It can give you a call as well. All right, if required. And then you get this, monitoring section here itself where you can monitor your entire pipeline. So you can always visit and see how your pipelines are performing, whether they're able to read all the data or not. So it gives you a complete suite, right, of tools that you're going to use in order to work with your data pipelines. All right, this is a very basic pipeline. In the class we'll see something called as a data flow. Now data flow is very complex. Here, okay, let me show you. In this pipeline, I have one source and one destination, right? What if I have multiple sources? Right? What if I have multiple sources? What if I have to define multiple sources in a single activity? Then I can use something called as a data flow. Mapping data flows are very powerful. Here, I can add a source, then I can add another source, I can add another source, right? So 3 different sources I can, define. Then let's say these 2 are tables and I want to create a join of these tables. I can create a join like this. Within the join, I can define, the left stream and the right stream, right? And what it is doing, nothing but creating a join of these 2 tables. What type of join do I want to create? Full outer, inner, left outer, right outer, custom, right? That I can define here. What is the condition for the join? Which columns do I want to perform the join operation on, right? So I can select a particular column from here. So this is also a very powerful tool, data flows. That is also something that we'll see in the class. After the join operation, let's say, I want to create a new column. I want to create a derived column, right? So what that derived column is, I can give the name, what is the expression, where this data is coming from. After adding a derived column, I can, let me zoom out a bit. I can say that I want to select a particular number of rows. I don't want to select all the rows. Once I've selected, I can then put my data into the sink. All right, sink could be, a single place like a data warehouse where I can put all of this data after the transformations that I have done. Clear? So this is something that we'll cover in the class itself. It would have taken more time to explain this, right? A very simple pipeline is easy to explain. And that is what, the basics, we are going to cover it. The storage account, it may have, looked a bit difficult to understand over here, but trust me, when we start, as I told you, we'll be starting with the very basics of Azure. And if you do not have any prior experience of working on the Azure platform, you don't have to worry about it at all. All right. You will start from the very basics, and we'll make sure that, towards the end of the course, you are fluent with Azure. If I want to give access to somebody else, okay, this is how you give it. If I want to create a storage account, all right, this is how we create it, right? So all of those things you will understand very clearly if you are practicing along with the course. Clear? So from tomorrow, we'll have the regular paid sessions, right? You can get in touch with the backend team. If you have any queries with that, you can ask them to connect you to me if you have any other query, from me, right? So I would love to see all of you in the class tomorrow, right? So trust me, you're going to have a lot of fun filled learning journey, along with, a lot of information that you'll understand, and we're going to make it absolutely easy for you to understand Azure and data engineering as well. All right. So thank you, everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, yes. Vishwa here. Regarding stress, like we can cover like within 45 hours class, like we can cover like all the things.
Yes.
That
The tools that we are going to work with, right? The basics and the fundamentals of Azure, then working with storages, working with databases, working with data lake, then Synapse Analytics, Data Factory, Stream Analytics, PySpark, Spark Pools, Databricks, all of this we can cover to a good
Yeah,
extent.
I have doubt. Like, like along with the 45 hours, like we can get like some extra videos for that, like we can learn because of even like Python also, like we have like multiple
Yeah, for
hours.
Python, we'll be sharing a course with you. All right. We'll be sharing some YouTube videos with you for Python. which you can do side by side before we reach that point. But trust me, for Python also, you need to have a basic understanding, and eventually you need to have a good level of understanding. But when it comes to PySpark, right, I'll make sure that you understand every bit of it, and you're able to do everything that is required to do with PySpark. That much we'll do in the class itself.
Okay, thanks, Suresh.
Shreyas, I have a question.
Mhm.
With this like a data flow, the transformation, whatever, like in the Azure data factory we have, it's
Mhm.
already code based on the backend, like which is
Mhm.
done by the Azure, and we are just
Mhm.
using functions, right? For
Yeah.
example, if I want to use like my own code or something like that, which is not in the Azure.
Mhm.
So, for example, in that way, we have to we have to go through the PySpark, or like the Power Query is also fine for us, because I worked on the Power BI.
I'll tell you. See, if you see here, right, you define various sources here. Apart
Mhm.
from that, if in case you want to run your own code, right, now that code could be in a form of a SQL script, yes,
Mhm.
or it could be
Yeah.
a PySpark code that you have written, right, whether in Databricks or anywhere. If you want to execute that, here we have that option also available, right? If you see the activities in Databricks, this notebook is nothing but a Python code that I can run. You have the Python code here also. Within Synapse, you can write the Python code in notebook forms. All right. Within general, you can run your SQL scripts also here if you want to run. You can run
Okay.
your stored procedures which are present in the databases from data factory itself. All right. So if I want to run a stored procedure, I need to select the database on which this stored procedure is created. And then once I select the database, I can select the name of the stored procedure. So whatever stored procedure you would have defined in your database could be executed from here itself. All right.
Okay.
By passing the parameters. So this is also something that we'll see in the class. All right.
Okay.
Lookup activity. I can look up data in the databases from here itself.
Got it. Got it.
All right. So everything we'll cover.
Thanks, Shreyas. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
So anybody have any other question regarding the registration or related to the topics he's covering?
Yesterday I discussed with you, right, Nitya, regarding timing of the class.
Timing? Yeah, the same timing, yeah, always Monday to Friday, evening 8 p.m. IST.
Yeah.
But my concern is, I will not join to 8 p.m. because my sleep time is 12 to 9. That's why. And I
Okay.
told you, so you told me that I call to you regarding the thing.
Yeah, recording will be there.
But recording will be there, but I can't ask the question though in recording session. I want to learn
Okay.
one to one.
Okay. Okay. Sham, can you please ping me directly? I will give you.
Okay.
Hello.
Where need to bring you? Where need to bring you?
Our number, direct number. I mean, contact
I
details.
have not
Do you
your.
have contact details?
No. I have not
Okay.
contact there.
Okay, I will
We'll
provide.
share it with you. Yeah.
So please ping us this number. So if anybody have any
Ah.
doubts regarding the access to the classes, if you want to have a shift to the next class or something, so I can give you the answer for this.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank you,
so much,
Shreya.
everyone,
Thank you.
yeah, for being a part of this demo session. It was really great having all of you here. So thanks a lot. Right. And if you have any doubts, the number is there in the chat window. You can always ping us and connect with us.
Okay. Thank you, Shreya. Thank you very much for